General Vagon has called the Battle of France is over. The Battle of Britain is about to begin.
Welcome to the Lead Pursuit Podcast, a podcast covering Blood Red Skies, a game of World War II aerial combat. So welcome to the Lead Pursuit Podcast. What are we going to talk about tonight? Well, I've got no idea. We're in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdown. I think my state, the last part of the United States to be a holdout for a shelter-in-place order, finally issued theirs. So we are firmly underneath the global pandemic of COVID-19. But the good news is I've got Brett on board. How you doing, Brett?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
And I've also got Chris, who's up there with his self-admitted worst governor ever.
What's up, man?
All right, well, it's good to have you guys on. So let's talk about a few things that we've seen out on the internet in the last week or so, since we were talking last week with John, having a hilarious time laughing at ourselves, yucking it up, and really not getting much done. But at least today, the good news came out. Warlord is headed back to work. Now, once again, they're not going to go put their employees at risk. They're trying to be smart about it. But they did release the news today that they are really going to attempt to be able to deliver some stock orders to keep their retailers, that may be online retailers, equipped and get individual orders out to individual purchasers, knowing there's going to be some kind of delay. Does anyone have a series of orders they've just been waiting to hit send on with Warlord?
So, I haven't. So I'm good right now in my the crap that I've got to get through, you know. So it hasn't bothered me at all that everybody's been stopping. Of course, I did find GHQ and the flight deck. I found that because of the flight deck decals thing. Yeah. So yeah, I put a substantial order. I ordered every carrier for Midway American.
Well, so I'm so glad you're supporting GHQ. I'm an old grog, and so GHQ was my go-to team for 1/285th scale micro armor for squad leader and for stuff, modern stuff. I still have a bunch of it sitting here in the closet right next to me. I've always loved GHQ's quality, and I just laugh that I'm like, yes, some other poor soul has had their life corrupted by GHQ.
Their stuff's gorgeous. When I first looked at the flight deck decals, I pulled it up last week. I had two thoughts. I was like, those can't be 1/2400 scale Japanese carriers. There's no way, because they're just too damn pretty. You know, when Brett told me about the site, and then lo and behold, yes, they are. But they're from GHQ. They're not done online, and they are simply gorgeous.
Even in the late 1970s, early 1980s, GHQ's metal was awesome. And I remember, and I'm going to get the designation of it wrong, it was a 8-wheel German APC with an anti-tank gun on it, and just the level of detail in the open cabin and everything with the AT gun, it was cool. And I was happy to put 6 of those on the board for squad leader, just because they were cool, even though my paint job on them sucked, and they probably still have a crappy 2-tone paint job on them right now. But their quality's always been good.
I never knew about GHQ until...
What rock have you lived under? Oh, that's right. Yeah. You're not a historical gamer. That's all right. That's all right. Yeah. Please, people, forgive him. He's a 40K baby. He came into this dishonestly.
I kind of wish I knew I had known about them, because I got mine from Shapeways, those carriers I have, and I suspect that the Micronauts might have been even better.
Well, and that's, you know, I'll take that hit, because it's kind of funny, because I tell stories about growing up with parents that apparently didn't love me because they owned a bookstore and a game store and introduced me to things like, miniatures games and war games and miniatures from GHQ and Ral Partha and all those companies. So I've always known about the GHQ Micronauts. I had just forgotten that how extensive their World War II line was, and that it was really the scale we were looking at. I had totally blanked on it. If you'd asked me about Micronauts, I would have thought about, old sailing ships for Oak and Iron or for one of those games. But yeah, their stuff is so high quality. I think this is going to make me take a trip down memory lane and perhaps pull out some of my old micro armor and maybe glue it down to an acrylic backing to make it a target.
Yeah, I found it. I was looking online. I was like, where are those carriers from? And I'll tell you this: I sent a text really quick to, not a text, but email to the Comcast email address at flightdeck.com. And that guy got back to me in like 5 minutes. Told me exactly
Nice.
where everything was from.
He might be as much of an enabler as Kevin over at
He
Miscellaneous
is
Minis
he is good. He is good, and he told me GHQ, and I had already found GHQ through another forum where I had looked it up because I started digging. I was like, those can't be Shapeways carriers, and lo and behold, they were all GHQ.
Well, I'm gonna have to go out and do my research because there's a couple companies that were around in the late '70s, early '80s that were amazing metal miniature companies, and I'm drawing a blank on the huge European 1/300th scale company. I'm sure somebody who's listening to the podcast can go, Doug, how are you so stupid? You forgot that. Here's what the name of it is. But I'll go look it up. And if they're still around, their stuff was, I thought it was a little bit lower quality than GHQ, but the price was right. If you needed to equip yourself with a battalion of T-34 tanks, you could go afford to buy it from these guys. And so it'll be interesting to see what we can use. And once again, there's a lot of homebrew miniatures out there because like all the guys that do the Pico armor, that's all brigade models out of the UK. Guys I've worked with years ago, back in another life. And their stuff is great. I love supporting them. And I'm always happy to see money to go to GHQ, even though they've been one of the big bears in the industry. They're a great company. They put out a great product.
Talking about going down a rabbit hole, I was checking out the 3mm Pico stuff, and website's a little hard to navigate. But when I finally found the 3mm stuff, I mean, talk about variety of tanks and trucks and
there's
gun pieces.
An amazing variety, and I'll be honest, I think you and I had the discussion a few months back, where my thought was always, if you wanted a detailed target model and you only wanted a couple vehicles, maybe 3 or 4 vehicles on there, sure, go with 1/285th, 1/300th scale, because the detail in the vehicle is there, and you're just representing a target area anyway. But if you want to put out a convoy and you want to make it look like a convoy, or you want a series of tanks herringboned off a road and to put a little, a little village church next to it, that is some really cool stuff you can do with those 3mm vehicles.
Sweet. I got some new paint. We want to talk about that?
Paint? We don't care about no stinking paint. Yeah, absolutely.
Always
tell me
wanna talk
about
about
your paint. Tell me about your paint.
I have a couple of new projects we talked about last time. I'm going to do those that Falcon Squadron and Johnny Red, and I didn't really have the appropriate color, so I picked up a box of the Air War Color Series from Vallejo, specifically for the Soviet Air Force from 41 to 43.
That's a great set.
I love these sets because they have really everything you need in one place. Anyway, so I grabbed that up so I have everything I need to knock those guys out. And I also ordered some more Mission Models paint for some late war stuff for the 262s I'm working on. So that's kind of cool. Those haven't arrived yet, but I just got the Air War Series kit today for those Russian models. So I'm going to get cranking away on those tomorrow.
I like those Air War Series kits. They're really nice.
Yeah, the Mission Model stuff, that's a company out of Utah. It started like 2 years ago. And not to badmouth them at all. It's just that I was right when I started first painting dust miniatures. And their OD green and one of their tans, there was just something about it. It just would not bond worth a shit. No matter what I did to the model, prepping it, I was just not getting good adherence. So whenever I went through and did my weathering layers, I was brushing paint off. It drove me nuts. But I had really good luck with a lot of their other colors. But those two particular ones, their OD, and it was one of the German tans, it just drove me nuts. So, and it might, I know different paint companies, you find different paints that just aren't good, but those two I struggle with. And it could have been, those were in like the very first batch that shipped to market. So, because I actually got them handed to me to test them, and I wasn't happy about it.
I haven't had any of those problems with it, thankfully, but I tried them as well as some other brands, specifically because I found the Vallejo pretty thin for brushwork. I tend to use the Vallejo stuff fine for airbrush. It's awesome for that, no problem. It's so thin. And it's certainly usable for brushwork, but it can be a little tedious if you have a lot to do. So I was looking for something that was the appropriate colors, but maybe more suitable for brushwork. And I found the Mission Model stuff to be pretty good for that. And of course I can thin it and airbrush it if I want, but thankfully I've not had any adhesion problems yet.
Yeah, I still find myself defaulting whenever I got to do brushwork. I just automatically go to GW. So it just brushes so damn well. I hate
It's
saying
the
that.
same stuff on my Space Marines. I love it. My Thunderhawks look
It's
just
good
like my
paint,
fighter
man.
planes.
It is good paint. I mean,
It
I gotta
is.
give
You know,
I gotta give
I-
Caleb Wisenbach told me that one time, and he got booed in the whole room when we were doing a painting class, and they were like, "What's your favorite paint?" And he goes, "Well, there's a lot of paints that are good paints, but to be honest, the most bulletproof paint for tabletop, where you're gonna handle your miniatures, and has the best laydown." Adhesion, barring the horrible pots that they will always come in, so that they're spill encouraging,
And that's why I hate them.
Yeah.
My
They
problem
are
is I
great
remember the old days with the tall glass jars and things that were so much better than these stupid little pots. I just hate the pots. They're just really, really useless to me.
They're horrible. I really don't know when they made that huge push a couple years. Well, I do know because it's money. Those pots don't seal well, and you dry out a lot of paint, and they also spill real easy.
Yeah.
And they make a mess, and people throw them away, and they go out and buy another one. But I just think that's one thing that
you
they
can be
do
like
in their
Brett, and
business
you can
model.
just buy a bunch of that paint.
Yeah, most of my paints are GW paints, and I do like them. I find sometimes, don't have the right colors for some of the projects I'm doing, but if I had to pick a paint, I just know it well, so I like it.
Well, so I'm glad you made that last point, and that is a huge key to me, is a paint that that you're comfortable with, that you're comfortable thinning to the right consistency, whether it's for airbrush, whether it's for brushwork. That is huge. And I'm actually going to use that kind of as a segue, because a lot of what I did my dust work with before I did stuff with Vallejos, different military series, I did a lot of stuff with Army Painter. And I did it knowing that out of the bottle, it's not a good paint. But once you learn how to thin it very well, I really liked it, and I liked their metals especially. Their metals, to me, were so much better than what was available from GW at the time. And it became kind of my comfort level. So the reason I bring that up is, in case people haven't seen, already on our Facebook page, Army Painter is doing a pretty cool thing. They have kind of converted over a lot of their bottling facility to bottling hand sanitizer. And it's kind of neat for me to see how various hobby industries have changed over to help the global pandemic. Army Painters out there doing some good work with bottling hand sanitizer, trying to get that out to school kids and to first responders. Some of the other companies that do 3D printing are out there working to make mask brackets so that the big acrylic masks can be carried, and other people are using 3D printing to carry the I don't know what to call them, maybe the comfort headbands is the best way to describe it, for the masks. But it's pretty neat to see the response around the world. What have you guys seen? Chris, have you seen anything cool up there?
The Chinese recaster I used to use, he switched over to make an N95 mask, and that was just bravo Zulu.
Yeah. I've actually seen a bunch of 3D and resin people have gone over to being mask people, and it's really funny. You're like, well, that makes sense, because
there were 3D
resin.
There was a bunch of 3D resin guys in some of the 3D printing forums that were showing how to do the convert a ventilator into two ventilators kit, and how that can be done, and that kind of stuff, and how these are really simple parts to manufacture. And it's been cool just to see the overall community. The one that I think is like completely tone deaf. Did you see Games Workshop's promotion that they put up like 4 days ago?
No. But the fact that you use the word tone deaf tells me that you're in college. Nice work.
Dude, they put up an ad saying, "We know you can't buy from us right now, but if you'll buy $100 gift card, we'll give you a $10 bonus." It's like,
oh,
okay,
ouch. Yeah,
so
you're going to
give me a 10% break so that I can help you over the hump on money that I may or may not spend. It's like, GW, man, you guys are they just kill me, dude. I don't know who's in charge of their PR and marketing, but it's got to be a bunch of freaking like economic lawyers. They're accountant lawyers, and they really don't understand the gaming business at all, understand gamers at all, because they just it's all like, it's got animation for it and everything else on their site. I mean, some designers spent some time. Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, dude, do you understand the concept of bang for buck at all in PR and advertising? Because you guys just keep getting it all wrong every time.
That's funny.
So now the one thing that they did do that was smart was, converting. It looks like they're going to pull a lot of people over to their Twitch stream, because they're doing all their new releases via Twitch, which is kind of annoying. But it is smart to try to get try to expand into another platform.
You say it's annoying because you must be like your parents trying to use a VCR. You're like, how do I find anything on Twitch? I don't
Twitch. When
this.
you talk Twitch, I'm thinking NBC, and I got too much freaking nerve gas. I don't get it, and I stop basically at I tell everybody in my PR classes,
I
stop at Instagram.
Millennial of this group? Am I like the only person that goes on Twitch and goes, hey, is someone streaming No Man's Sky? What can I find today? Am I like the only person that's been on it more than once out of this group? Brett doesn't even know what Twitch is for, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I do. I subscribe to Rabute Guliman, but he hasn't posted in a while.
Of course. Yeah, go figure.
He had some
There's an Ultramarine Bathhouse channel.
He had some hilarious posts right when the new, I guess, 8th edition dropped, and he was brought back from stasis or whatever. I was riveted, but it didn't last long. So that's the only use I've had for Twitch. I haven't looked at it in forever. I've turned into a Zoom expert recently because I've been using it like crazy at work.
Oh, I hate that unsecure, horrid thing called Zoom. Sorry, I'm a Google Hangouts and Skype guy.
Yeah,
it's
but
like
I use a work one, so it's like ultra locked up. Yeah.
Yeah, the big problem with college right now is every professor is doing their own thing. So it's and they're all old, aged centenarians. And it's we're going to use Cisco's WebEx today. And I'm going to try to figure out, I can't get the PowerPoint slides that I made you to do to come up on it. I mean, it's hilarious watching these people just baffle with technology.
Yeah. So that is right there. And we'll talk about it more a little bit later. That is my life in a nutshell with tabletop sim. Because let's think about the dynamic of wargaming and that how many young people who are used to using Steam and downloading subscribable content versus how many people are used to getting their war games out of a dusty old box.
Right. Yes. I saw the comment where the guy was asking you about graphics cards yesterday, and I was just
I felt so bad because it was one of those where I'm like, dude, I feel your pain. I've been that guy.
I could see you doing the system command and searching through this because you have no clue.
I'm like, dude, I haven't built a computer in a couple years, and I felt really bad because everyone saw my comments out there. I'm like, I don't even know what to recommend, but I know what's in my machine that's a laptop right now. Yeah. So, which is funny because if you had backed up, 6 years and asked me, hey, what should I do for gaming? I could have told you in a heartbeat. No big deal. I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Here's the card that you want. Here's what you want to put in that desktop. I haven't built a desktop in so long that I even had to sit out there and think. I'm like, what are the cards that are out there these days? I don't know. Yeah, so I see once again.
What card manufacturer is still around?
Yeah, Doug was useless to the community for that section because once again I've totally transitioned to laptops and super tablets for my photography business, and whatever I get in there is what I use.
That system cannot require too much because I'm running it off my wife's laptop and it's nothing extraordinary.
I don't think it does. Now what I'll say is a lot of people. I guess they kind of assume they have good graphics capability, and that is one of the first things to be short-circuited by these companies when they're selling you a laptop. They're like, hey, these people aren't gamers. They're just going to watch YouTube videos, and they're going to do some spreadsheets for their homeowners association. So there's a lot of really nerfed graphics cards out there in a lot of the laptops. But the fact is, especially if you have a desktop, it's really not that hard. Go out there, spend $120 or whatever. You can probably find a good one. I don't know how many of the good ones are down in the $80, $90 range. But most of those should be able to hack it. I mean, tabletop sim is not asking a lot of your computer. But then again, like I said, I pretty much buy mine as an entire box.
You were saying about social media and stuff. I saw that email from, I guess, the social media folks at Warlord about TTS and the work you've done.
Yeah, so I'm really happy. And this is not to say that Doug Glover is any genius, by the way, but I'm just really happy that Andy and Warlord have got behind this tabletop sim project for the community. And once again, in case people haven't talked to me about it or haven't kind of figured it out from the tone of my posts, putting stuff in tabletop sim isn't about making money for Lead Pursuit. It isn't about making Lead Pursuit the only outlet for digital blood red skies things. It's about starting a little bit of a spark in the community. And Brett, I think you and I saw that with Steve the other night as we were playing, because as we got through and played and kind of figured out how the game worked and how some of the gameisms of Tabletop Simulator were, Steve was like, oh, hey, wait, I can do this, or I can convert a model to do this, or what if we bring this gameplay element in? And that's kind of the cool thing, is that it's stuff I'm never going to get around to programming, coding or whatever, but it's things other people will take the ball with and run.
Yeah, the next morning he had Corsairs on the table.
I laugh at, yeah, exactly. That's the problem of bringing a 3D modeler into your game, is all of a sudden he's like, oh wait, I've got a model for that. And sure enough, and he ran afoul of the same modeling problem in tabletop sim that Rosalind ran afoul of, that I don't know what scale it wants your models to be, apparently excruciatingly tiny, because everything that's kind of the real scale it would print when you bring it in, it literally takes up your entire table. I'm like, well, that's an impressive Corsair model. I don't think we're going to get a squadron of them on the gaming table.
Well, you do deserve a lot of credit for it, because I know last time I got on there, I think you were over like 60 hours on it. So you're probably over 100 now.
I guess my stats do tell the story of how much time I've been in there fooling around with it. But it's fun. I enjoy it. I will say that my intent, and we can talk a little bit more about this later, is once again not to make the perfect final product. Is to push something over the hump so that everybody has the tools to do what they want to do with it. Not to make the final end-all be-all. And like I said, we'll talk about that in a bit. But I want to cover a couple more things Intel-wise. So in case you haven't noticed out there on the Warlord web store, and so you don't fall down and make a fool of yourself like I did, yes, there's a 50% off sale on PDFs and ebooks. That hurts. So I probably spent too much money today, but I got a bunch of different rules for Bolt Action, Warlords, Averawan, some Antares stuff, some Conflict 47. But the cool thing is if you want to go out there and you've been waiting to buy PDFs, now is definitely the time.
Yeah, I tell you what, that Osprey book, the second week Osprey went up a couple days ago, and I went in and
not gone out and done that.
Dude, there's a really, they've got the one just for the community. Get out there if you haven't heard about it yet. Osprey is doing 5 free ebooks every week, and all you got to do is sign into Osprey. They give you the code, and you put them in your little cart like you're paying for them, and then put the code in, and they're free. And basically, they're just doing this to gather email addresses and everything else for direct marketing later. But it's a great offer. I mean, you're getting 5 free books from Osprey every week. And they're pretty good ones. I'm reading the Blackbeard's Raid one right now, which is all about Blackbeard the Pirate. I downloaded the Hurricane one, which is all about the development of the Hurricane. There have been some interesting. Last week, I think they had the U.S. Marines versus the Japanese Infantry series. So it was like force on force. So they've got some really good stuff out there. So if you haven't tried it, definitely try it. So they're free.
I just grabbed that Hurricane book today.
Yep. I've been grabbing all of them. I mean, who knows? I might fall down a rabbit hole and do Assyrian infantry and legends someday.
Yeah, I don't see that happening, but okay.
Who knows?
When you get through all of your old Warhammer Fantasy stuff that's still sitting in your closet of doom.
Oh God, I was trying to sell my ogres online because ogres were released, and I just couldn't. I didn't have the heart to do it. I took all the pictures, and it was like about to put them up on eBay, and it was like someday I'll paint those. It's like my dwarves. I've probably got freaking 8,000 points of dwarves between old pewter sculpts and new plastic sculpts, and it's just sitting there. You're probably never going to get a chance to paint it. Well, you're going to die before you'll ever paint it.
I may have done a bad thing by downloading the PDF for Warlords of Erewhon, because I'm not a fantasy guy, but that could convert me into being a fantasy army guy, in the sense of not necessarily doing some of the very standard fantasy stuff, but the fact that you can do samurai, you can do a lot of other cool things with it. So
isn't that a little more skirmishy too?
Nah, I wouldn't. Well, I don't think it's as large as Fantasy Battle was, but I think it's Rick Priestley's attempt to say, "Hey, I'm going to go back and we're going to do it right, and we're not going to have GW steal all my good ideas."
Okay.
But once again, I haven't actually read the rule book. I've only listened to a couple podcasts about it, but we'll see.
Did you snatch up a bunch of those samurai models at Coastal Con? The guy next to us had a ton of them.
No, I didn't, because I looked at him and I was at a point where I was like, no, I'm thinking about Blood Red Skies. I am not going down that road. So I'm kind of regretting that, because, there were some cool ones.
There's a couple good samurai and just Asian theme games that are out there. Some of the guys in one of the chats that I'm in for one of the painting groups at one of the painting classes I went to, we keep a chat going. Everybody posts their work that they're doing. And one of the guys is into several of those games. And some of the stuff is just beautiful blocks of little samurais with spears or two-handed swords. And it's just like, oh God, I wish I had the time.
Yeah. Time. Well, we all have time now. Guess what? Well, not really, because I'm still working like I always work. So.
Dude, the college answer when they said college goes online, the professor answer is, oh yeah, well we can't do that, so let's add a paper. Let's just do. We'll put a paper requirement in that place. So yeah, that's been my life, just paper after paper after paper.
That's frustrating.
Here's a tip, a fresh tip. If you have a pile of resin that you're working on, do the big planes first because it makes the pile shrink really quick. I just did a B29. It seems like my pile's a lot smaller.
Tell me about your pile of crap you're working on, which AKA Command Decision.
Yeah, so I just finished the B29. I finished it, I guess, a little while ago, but remember I broke one of the prop discs because I was just an ogre putting it on, and you have to drill it out a little bit to get it to fit, and I cracked it, and it was the only one I had, so I had to order some more, but I got them today, and so I finished that, and I'll be posting it up pretty soon. Some pictures.
Dude, it's really pretty.
I really like the black. That whole. I remember just the photographs when we were talking about doing B-29s for Korea. Not all of them have that black camouflage. Later in the war they did that for night missions and stuff. But I just think it's so distinctive, so cool. Clearly a Korea thing, and I like it.
Yeah, I saw some photos that a good friend of mine had from the 1960s out at, I guess maybe it was actually the early 70s, out at China Lake Naval Air Weapons Station, and kind of their boneyard target area that had a couple of their B-29s that had the black underbellies still painted on them from Korea, that they were targets that were about to be drug out to the range. And that was just so cool to see those bombers, because they still were in great condition, having just sat in the California desert for a lot of years waiting to take their turn as a target. But I like that paint job. I think it's a pretty neat paint job.
So what else is everybody working on?
A pile of resin that's not getting any smaller.
Well, yeah, I'm doing those aircraft for John in payment for the pilot scale discs he gave me, so I'll get those cranking out. I think that's going to be a fairly fast project because I think they're relatively easy paint schemes, and it's just 2 squadrons, so no big thing.
Those decals are a little fiddly. If you run into a bind on them, let me know. I've got 2 sheets of them because I got one with Johnny Red and I got one with the Johnny Red Squadron, but I'm not doing the Johnny Red Squadron as it was until I can get most of that stuff in resin, just because I hate the metal models. So if you do end up in a bind for decals, just let me know. Speaking of decals, did you see that funny email from Kevin?
I'm ignoring all of Kevin's emails because that will make me feel bad.
Oh no, he was so funny. He was like, been listening to the podcast. You guys are awesome. Thanks for the mention. And tell everybody that if I'm not dying and I don't need money, I'm not going out of business. It's a small business.
Yeah.
So put your money, where it does the most good. If you want decals, hey, I'm here. But I thought that was pretty funny. They reached out.
I just laughed because I'm like, oh look, it's something from Kevin. I'm going to delete it because otherwise I go buy more decals. But actually, and I got to say the great thing with Kevin and David pairing up is that David already had some of the miscellaneous minis decals for the jets I ordered. So when I said, hey, I need some Vietnam era stuff, David immediately said, hey, do you want the standard miscellaneous minis decals? I'm like, absolutely, put those in there if you got them.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it makes it good. So if you're thinking about pre-ordering for Vietnam and getting ahead of the game, David Schmid does take a while to get some of it done because it's not his number one priority right now. He's got a lot of World War II stuff that's stacked up. But he is absolutely still cranking out those models. They look beautiful. Sure, like a lot of the larger winged aircraft, there's a little bit of warping, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of work tomorrow with some hot water to get those the wings on one of the Phantoms and one of the F-8s evened out. But it's nothing that's too difficult. And, of course, the empennage area, the tail area, has got some warping as well, but a little bit of work there, and they'll be ready for primer. Although I kind of feel bad primering these things. Well, at least the U.S. ones in gray, because I'm gonna primer them in gray, and then I'm gonna paint them in gray for the Navy. I'm like, well, isn't that just fucking boring? So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to come up with some good tail color schemes or something for the Navy F4s and F8s. Because there's certainly not a whole lot of camo there. I'm
going to do Air Force camo on the F4s and the 105s.
Of course you are, because you love the chair force. Yes, good for you.
I had it right the first time, 105s. Yeah. I'm not, geez. Anyway, I'm going to do that. I think for Vietnam, I'm going to do the Air Force stuff.
Well, and I would send you some F4s immediately to work on, except the fact that I only ordered 2 of them, and I want to do them up as a Navy or as a Marine Corps squadron. And I tell you, Chris, you're going to laugh at me because that is my drama. What Marine squadron do I do? And which one who do I paint these aircraft up to be like? Because you know how it is. We're such an incestuous redneck family in the Marine Corps when it comes to squadrons that we hate everybody else who isn't one of us.
You just break your pencil before you can paint freaking 224.
Oh God, yeah. No, I could do 224 easier because I have spent time flying in the airplanes. My problem is I wanted to do the F8s first in VMFA 212. And what do you think my answer to 212 was? Yeah, fuck those guys. I hate those guys. So then I'm like, all right. So I don't like the Lancers, even though their jet was beautiful in Vietnam. I'm like, all right, who else can I find? Well, 312 operated there, and I'm like, I'm not going to paint that many checkerboards on the damn tail. I'm like, geez, that's a cool paint job. So then I went to one of the dead squadrons, Trip Tray. And the problem is I can paint up both an F4 that's actually a MiG killer and an F8 for Trip Tray for VMFA 333. But I'm so tired of people talking about that damn squadron. You were in Beaufort at the same time I was, Chris. It's like, your squadron is dead. It has a headstone at the officers club.
Shut
up about
everywhere you went at Mag 31, there was Trip Tray shit. And it was like anybody that ever been associated with Trip Tray, even if they were like the grandson of somebody, freaking was walking around talking about Trip Tray. And it's like,
yeah, talk about what a great squadron was. I'm glad it was a great squadron. It's dead. It will never come back.
What's your big favorite squadron? Is it Crusaders? Is that right?
Well, that would be my wife's favorite squadron because that was her squadron. So
okay.
She was the blue collar squadron from VMFA 122 from the Crusaders. Mine was the Hawks VMFA all weather 533.
So Hawks Signo Vincis forever.
Exactly. Unfortunately, Chris and I would be painting up A6s for Vietnam.
Yeah,
that's fine. I'll paint up an A6 eventually for them. But yeah, I don't have any cool fighter things until later, but that's all right. I mean, we could do A4s at some point. We could do a lot of other cool airplanes for them, but yeah, tragically, it'll be all A6s for Vietnam.
So what else you got other than you just working on Johnny Red there, Brett?
Yeah, I'm kind of at the same time doing the 262s because, they're in different stages. I've already got the Johnny Red stuff all primed up and I have the paints now. I'm still waiting on the paint for the 262s, but I'm going to primer them tomorrow. So when I'm not working on one, I'll kind of bounce back and forth between the 2 squadrons. And I think that should go fairly quickly. And when I get those done, I think what I'm going to do next, I have 3 DO-17s that are already base coated. I just need to nug those out and get them done for Battle of Britain. So I might just do those next because they're already, I just got to finish them up. That'll be quick.
Yeah, I just got my decals in from Kevin for my last 2 Mossies because with the Mossies coming 6 planes to a kit, I wanted to do, and since you don't see in Blood Red Skies more than like a 2-ship flying around of mosquitoes, it just, what's the point? So I did 3 different squadrons. So I did a New Zealand one, I did a Royal Air Force one, and then I did a Polish Air Force one. So flying for the RAF. So I got those decals in today and got them done. And then I was tired of painting camo after doing the Mossies. So this weekend I was like, I want an airplane that I can try to get done in a day. So I took the P40s that I got from Warlord, which, by the way, I really like. They were really good resin models to work with, just a little bit of cleaning up. The P40 actually, where the mold connects to the airplane is right on the front intake nacelle. And so you get a lot of a dimple in there. But what I found is that if you're really good, make sure you got some good snippers when you snip it off. But even if you don't, there's enough of a hump there that if you get some milliput or something like that, it crams right down in there. And I went with the Burma Banshee, so the entire decal covers the entire spot. So as long as it's flat and can lay flat, it looks good.
Better to be lucky than good.
So exactly. So, but yeah, I knocked out the Burma Banshees. I was actually able to get them. It took me a day and a half, but I was able to get them all done this weekend. So, which was a really fun squadron.
It's
great
sad
decals.
To say I'm excited to paint my 2 MiG-19s and 2 MiG-21s because I'm like, woohoo, these will be quick and easy. So I think
Vallejo metal color done.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. When you posting those up, Chris. Those Mossies look awesome. The pictures I saw.
So I got the decals laid tonight for the Polish ones. So I will get the flory on them tomorrow and get it all cleaned up, and hopefully get the canopies painted in the next couple days. But I already posted the Banshees, but then I got to get those last two done. And then I think I'm going to switch back because I haven't done Soviet airplanes in a while, and I've still got all my lags, I've got all my LA5s, and I've got all my I-16 sitting on the drawing boards. And I think I'm just going to go with some simpler paint schemes for a lot of those and just knock them out.
What's the little clown car that's in this set that I'm painting?
That's the I-16 or the Rada. That thing was actually flew a lot in the Spanish Civil War. It just shows Soviet aviation. It was just a beater of an airplane, but it just wouldn't quit. And they flew them for quite some time until they figured out the whole, let's close the canopy in when we're going to fly around at 10,000 feet. Because they were open cockpit, but they were one of the first, mono wing airplanes. And when they came out, they were pretty state of the art, but they just didn't age well. But they're neat little airplanes.
Is that the one they called the sewing machine in Stalingrad?
So yeah, the Polikarpov.
Nice.
Yep. Polikarpov I-16. So neat little airplane, but yeah, definitely in Spanish Civil War it got nicknamed the Rat, just because it was so short, fat, and just kind of everywhere.
So. There's one of those in this Johnny Red Squadron. It's kind of an interesting mix of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 different aircraft, I guess, in that squadron.
You actually get like 3 different eras in that box. So because it's pretty much a like soup to nuts Soviet aviation in World War II in that squadron.
These 262s are my first try with the new resin, and I'm pretty pleased. It's softer than most resins I've ever worked with. It's flexible. You described it that way too. I would kind of liken it to a combination of the soft bendy plastic that you got in the starter box and more rigid resin that you might get from, say, like AIM or whatever.
Yeah, it's a little softer than the stuff from AIM, but I've had zero difficulties so far working with it.
Yeah, it's easy to clean up. Yeah.
Yep, it takes paint well. I haven't had any problems with paint rubbing off, which with Forge World and some of the other resin model makers was just always an issue, and especially working at the scale, it's a concern. But I've had it. Weathering hasn't been an issue. I haven't had a single model that I've done in the resin so far that hasn't taken paint well.
I was pretty impressed with the level of detail on the 262s. So we'll see. It should be
the
nice.
P40s are great. They've got really good panel lines on the wings. They're just deep enough to hold the flory, but not so deep that they look like the P51s.
Well, cool. Well, hopefully at one of these points, I'm actually going to get some more of my stuff painted. We'll see what happens. Maybe we can actually start playing. All right. So wanted to talk a little bit about the 700-pound gorilla in the room, the stuff that we've put out for Tabletop Sim. Brett, you've at least had a chance to play with the rule set, or I should say the miniatures, the models, whatever you want to say, on Tabletop Sim. Chris, I know you've been really busy and you haven't necessarily had a chance to, but what do you guys think so far? We're looking at it.
Man, I loved it. I've played, a couple times, maybe 3 times, something like that. I don't know. It's been a blast. I was kind of like Tyrone Biggums after the first time I played, like, y'all got any more of that Tabletop Simulator?
Yeah, you kept harassing me. I'm like, no, dude, I got to actually get stuff done this weekend.
Yeah. So, yeah, I got the bug now. And it's fun for me because I've said this before. It is such a good translation of the actual game. And for me, that's awesome because I actually get a chance to play way more than I ever would have been able to play just waiting for, us to get together, that kind of thing. So this is going to be a good outlet for me to get reps in. And I'm super satisfied with it.
It looks amazing, and I can't wait to get a chance to try it. But it's just not in the horizon until I get, it's probably about the 20th of this month, about the time they start relaxing some of this social distance stuff. I might be able to see freaking into what's going on next month. So that's when school's officially over with.
Yeah, exactly. Well, as I talked about earlier, my intent was to kind of put something out there and see how it would get started, and people to run with it, put models in, put cards in, put whatever they wanted in there, and to build their own game mats and their own tables. I think there will probably be a more advanced version to come out at some point, either from me or from Warlord or just from a couple of us putting our heads together to figure stuff out to get a bunch more models in there, because let's be quite honest, there's no reason why we can't pull a lot of that in. Warlord seems very happy and genuine about sharing information. So I think there's a desire to at least give people something to play with over the next couple months while they're stuck in social distancing land.
Well, you and I are going to like it, but I think the real training indicator is the kind of reaction we got from like Steve Toth when he played. He'd never seen it before. I can totally relate with where he is in life because he's got 3 kids. He works. He's not playing this game. He's really a hobbyist, and plays with his dad occasionally, but he's not going to a game place. His dad's not going to go to a game place to play. But they can play this, and he can play with us and others. And he was totally geeked out about it. So, I mean, that's just an indicator just how well this is likely to be received. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I think part of it really is if people will let us know what they want. I know I put a kind of a feeler post out there a day or so ago where I said, hey, give us some feedback, knowing that everybody's going to say models. It's always models. It's always other aircraft. We always want more cool things like that. I got that. I want to fill out all the other cool things and make sure we've got templates in there. And I laugh. I had to share the video of poor Brett in there trying to position his model just perfectly right in the middle of the fur ball of everybody else. So there's always going to be glitches with the game. There's always going to be things you have to work through and things you have to understand how the game wants you to interact with it, not how you think you're interacting with it. But I think most of those you can get over and you can figure out.
You got to code it so that if you go too close to models, they all fall over.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you got to reset them all.
Yeah, that's actually not hard to do. I could actually, it was harder to make things resilient than it was to make them, easy to knock over.
I'm better at it in tabletop simulator than I am on a real table once we start having magnets and metal tape.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know about that. You with the magnets on a real table and moving my MiGs and my fighters all over the board. So.
That's what I mean. Yeah, I'm better at not doing that on tabletop simulator. I'm knocking them all over the place in a real game.
With a tape measure out there on,
yes.
On the regular board.
Right.
Well, so hopefully we'll see some more maps. I know we've got a couple plans in work to see what we can get ported over for maps. Definitely eventually some more different models and different aircraft cards. But we're trying to get just the gameplay part of it to what everybody wants to make sure that they've got cloud markers. I know we got to do barrage balloon markers. Don't know how many of you play with them. I haven't bothered to put those in there yet, but we'll get a lot of that stuff in there. And thankfully, once again, Warlord has been good. They've been. I was answering emails this morning as some fairly important people in the company were asking, "Hey, what's the feeling online? What did people say? Do they like it? Are they interested?" And there were some very frank discussions about ways that Warlord could weigh in and could help and could offer some things to the community, to use in the game to make things easier. So I think it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
I mean, I don't know anything about this level of stuff, but I was thinking some easy to access DLC would maybe pour it in pretty nicely and give you lots of other things to add into the game, but we'll see how it develops.
Well, and so everybody knows that was one of my pitches to Warlord was this is a great first step, but hey Warlord, if you want to go out and make an official Blood Red Skies DLC that has some of your IP in there that people have to pay a small fee to download, there's probably not going to be a heck of a lot of pushback from the community if it's stuff that's unique. But, if you're asking me to pull down the regular PDF rules and pay for that when I can get the PDF off your website, people aren't going to do that. They're not interested in that. But they want to, people are willing to pay a small amount of money for some really cool DLC. You're never going to make $1 bazillion on DLC in a small game market like Blood Red Skies. But it's a way for Warlord to be able to feel like they're sharing stuff and recouping some of their cash flow with the rest of the community. And to be honest, we have already had the discussion about models and about their beautiful 3D renderings of some of the models coming up. And we'll see where the conversation goes. But I made my sales pitch pretty hard for them to, over the next couple months, start releasing low-res versions of those models that are about to come out as downloadable content for Blood Red Skies on Tabletop Sim.
Can you tell us much about how you and maybe some of the guys on the playtest team have used the platform to test stuff?
Absolutely. So a couple of us on the playtest team have used it specifically for the Vietnam rules. And it's nice there because most of our playtest team, or actually all of our playtest team, is geographically challenged. Playing with people in the UK, playing with people in Virginia. Brett, you're in Florida. I've got some other people out on the West Coast. So it's we're not going to get a chance to play with each other, and we're also going to have to kind of read in other people that are local to play 1 or 2 games, but they may not consistently play, so it really isn't a good playtest. But with this, now me and the rest of the primary playtest team, we can all get in, we can argue about it, we can immediately, change a card, like a trait card in PowerPoint, put that into a PDF. I can load it into the game, and within 60 seconds, everybody's looking at the same trait card. That, at least to me as a playtester, is kind of a game changer. It's both cool and frightening because we've run into some version control issues where we keep going through and changing things, and then we finally have to go, what was the last version that we really, really liked? But it's a cool way to rapidly go out there and try some of these things. And it's also cool for some of the playtesters to try things at home without asking their wife, "Hun, can I take over the dining room table to set up my miniatures again?" They can actually check some of the maneuvering, some of the weapons, some of the different aircraft traits, and give us some good feedback then.
Well, I got a legitimate question too. We've messed with it some where we've put like the red colors on the mine were red, but where you custom colored the bases so you could tell who was who.
Right.
When we had, because we did a three-way game where there was 2 players with 109.
That's right, Chris. We had a 3-way without you.
Dude, I let that one go by. I almost jumped on it, but I was like, "That's all right. I'm just going to let that one
I was going to go by on that one already.
Is that normal, like everyday content now, or?
Well, so it's something that's going to have to kind of be addressed in a tutorial video, because it's kind of funny. It's standard in a lot of other games that have bases that are a separate part of the model, that people are used to going in, right-clicking, and choosing a color code for their base so it's easy to pick out their forces on the tabletop. Because even in Bolt Action, when you look at it from above, there's a bunch of little green or dark green dudes running around on a green or brown map, and so finding your individual model can sometimes be difficult. So people are used to highlighting that base with a fluorescent color, and kind of like we did, where yours were red, mine were that let's see, what were they? They were teal, I guess, is the best way to describe that color. I think we ended up putting purple or pink or something on Steve's models, but it gave us an ability to quickly break those models out and to be able to see whose were whose. Because right now, and I don't think that at least while I'm handling the models, we're not going to have fully skinned models that have, fancy paint jobs and stuff on there. I don't have the hours in the day. If somebody else wants to do that on little airplanes, knock yourself out. Please do. But, we kind of need a way right now to tell some of our aircraft apart other than the primary colors.
Yeah, in a real game, that's how we do it. It's like, oh yeah, mine are the green ones and yours are the tan ones, but that's not really.
I don't know, says the man who keeps trying to outmaneuver his own guys on the board.
Actually, it's usually a lot easier, Brett. It's ours are the painted ones, Doug's are the primer ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll take that abuse from Chris.
The dice roller was.
You better take that abuse. I was the one that was up till 2:00 in the morning helping you get 3 colors on Imperial Fist the night before Adepticon.
Yeah, and sadly, that wasn't the year that the Imperial Fist actually shot all your guys up, so I didn't play you that year. Oh, disappointing.
I love you, man.
Disappointing. Disappointing.
The dice roller we used last game, was that standard kit for the starter set, or
it will be. There's a couple things coming out this week. The automatic dice roller. So if you're like Brett and you can't figure out how to roll dice without throwing them across the table and knocking everyone's models over,
I only threw them off the table once.
So if rolling your dice in tabletop sim aren't your thing, there will be a dice roller where you select how many dice you need. You press the roll button, they all come up. It tells you what you got, how many successes. You clear off all the dice with another button, and that'll be there. We'll still have custom dice in there because I know people like seeing custom Luftwaffe dice, U.S. Air Force dice, RAF dice, all those things. Those will still be in there, and you can still use them on this die roller because all you do is you just take one of those custom dice, stick it on the die roller in Tabletop Sim, and then that's what all of your 10, 12, whatever dice you roll, what it uses for that model. So that'll be in there. The templates are in there. I'll be quite frank. The templates are in there because people have asked for them. I don't think they are that useful for moving. I think they're a little fiddly, and there's some ways you'll have to get used to putting them through the physics of all that. I don't know, Brett, what was your experience with some of that?
Yeah, 2 things. I roll way more 6s in Tabletop Simulator than in real life with my Luftwaffe
That's
dice.
because you keep using the stupid starter set dice. Burn those things. Melt
Right.
them down.
Yeah, so I like the dice roller, and I learned that thing about pressing P to get the direct overhead view when I'm trying to move stuff, so
Absolutely.
I'm not inadvertently cheating you on my movements.
Exactly. As I'm watching your fighter just slide about an inch to the left, I'm like, hey, dude, how do you do that?
It looked perfect to me.
You look perfect to me. So that was one of the other things was that the changing the camera angles in Tabletop Sim allowed you to not need to have the template because you could get a perfect overhead view and you could go, okay, I can see now that I'm not cheating and not sliding my fighter one way or the other and giving an unfair advantage. But there's still limitations. We haven't figured out how to turn less than 15 degrees in Tabletop Sim. So tailing, sometimes it's putting an airplane there and saying on the Discord chat with your buddy, hey, dude, I could turn another 5 degrees that I need to tail you. Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to count that as tailing. I'll go ahead and drop my fighter to disadvantage. So, you need to be a good sportsman there about some of that. So we probably will never have competitive Blood Red Skies on Tabletop Sim, but be a good sport about that and help the other guy out.
You would have been proud of me, Chris. I tailed Doug twice. I still got shot off the board, but I tailed somebody.
That's a win.
Yeah, exactly. That's fine because I just hit the brakes and let him fly right by.
Oh. And that's Tom Cruise, man. He can't even make it into the theater. Oh.
Yeah. Oh, that's so wrong.
Family Guy's Tiny Tom Cruise is still one of my all-time favorite freaking comic gags. Oh my god, it's just so funny. He's the same height as Stewie. It's just awesome.
Going to hell for watching The Family Guy, but it's so funny. All right. Well, we've been talking for about an hour, and a lot of that's been BSing offline, so you guys won't hear it in the podcast in the final recording. You'll be like, why is this a 38-minute podcast? They said they talked for an hour. Because we're not sharing any of those horrible, terrible things that are reprehensible and would have us put in jail or at least in Facebook jail. But anyway, any last-minute points, Chris? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I am good, man. I'm just looking forward to getting some more freaking painting done, getting some more Russians on the board, and God, hopefully I can get some games in soon.
Well, I heard that they're starting that Magic Club back up, so you can probably get some games in when you come out of quarantine.
It wouldn't be a podcast without one Magic joke. Exactly. That's all right. I nailed you on freaking your fist, so we're
you
good.
Did, jackass. Brett, any last minute parting shots from you?
Yeah, last time I said paint your models. I stick with that, but now I also add in there, get on Tabletop Simulator. It's awesome. It's worth it. Check it out.
Yeah, it is, and I'll be spending some more time this week trying to get stuff ready, but I'm really trying to unplug from Tabletop Sim now that I've got it where it is, and actually go follow Brett's advice and paint my effing models, because I need to do that, because otherwise all this resin is just going to sit on my desk. Thanks everyone for listening and taking some time to spend with us. We hope everyone's being safe out there and enjoying a little bit of gaming while they can. Have a good evening.